Kakadosh Boker Or. I wanted to share with you a beautiful idea connecting Parashat Behar with obviously Sefirat HaOmer and the students of Rabbi Akiva. In this week's Parashat, it says, "V'chiyamuch achicha imach," right? Umata yedo imach v'chazakta boger v'toshav acha imach. What does that mean? When you have a brother, somebody, a friend that becomes poor, v'chazakta bo, you have to strengthen him, help him out. Yes, v'cha imach, in order to let him live. Now, the Gemara Metzia actually says something very interesting. There were two people that they were going on the path, and there's only one bottle of water. If both of them drink, both of them will die. Why? Because it's not enough for both. If one of them drinks, he's able to go to the yishuv, he's able to get to the place, right, to the next city, but the other one will die. So Ben Petura says it's better that they both drink and they both die, but the one should not see the death of his friend. Until Rabbi Akiva came and he said, your life comes before your friend's life. The Chidushei Harim comes and he asks a very interesting question. What does it mean, Ad Sheba Rabbi Akiva? It said that Darash Ben Petura, this is halacha, that both of them should drink and they should both die, because you don't want the one who's going to see the death of the other one. Until Rabbi Akiva came. And he said, no, your life comes before your friend's life. What does that mean? Until Rabbi Akiva comes. It's much so that he actually changed the halacha. The answer is that the Torah actually found it that really be'emet, mitzad tzvara, mitzad mitzvah, v'avat Israel, we would have had to give the water to our friends. And even if it's going to cost us our lives, because how could it be that I'm going to drink and all of a sudden we're going to see the death of our friends? How could it even be sweet in our mouth? How could we even do such a thing? Until Rabbi Akiva came and he was Doresh, no. There's a general rule, your life comes before anybody else. And that's what also they come and they say that since if both of them would have drunk, so at least they would have had in their hearts that that's what he's willing to do. But he just can't do it because of the maskana. Meaning, even if this situation, chas v'shalom, would happen, and there are two people in the desert, and right now there's only one bottle of water, even if it wasn't for the fact that there's halacha that you have to drink because your life comes first, mitzad, the way that you should have done it is, I want to give him to drink. I want to give the friend to drink, not even myself. With this, now we actually understand an incredible yesod. Listen to this Gemara. Gemara Masechet Moed Katan. There was an incredible story with Rabbi Chia when he was going to pass away. The Gemara tells us that when it came the time of Rabbi Chia to pass away, right, the Malach HaMavet was not able to come close to him. He was too holy. His Kiddusha was just so, he wasn't able to come to him. So the Malach HaMavet, b'derech klal, he's not afraid of anybody. Right? The opposite. Everyone's afraid of the Malach HaMavet, but he's not afraid of anybody. But here, he was afraid of the Malach. He was afraid of Rabbi Chia. He couldn't do anything. So therefore, right, he didn't know. So what did he do? He got himself dressed up like Anani. Right? And he wants to go to he was always learning. So what happens? Malach HaMavet comes, right? And he wants to see what's going on. So, right, he puts himself like a poor person. He comes to the house of Rabbi Chia, knocks on the door. Rabbi Chia Tzaddik comes running out. He gives him the bread, but the ani doesn't go. So Rabbi Chia says, okay, what else do you need something else? So the Malach HaMavet comes and he says, I see that Kvodo, you have mercy on the aniim, right? So I see that you're a Bal Chesed. So why don't you have mercy on me? Now Rabbi Chia, right, doesn't understand. He comes and he says, why are you saying I'm not having mercy on you? He says, I just give you bread. Well, what do you mean I don't have mercy? But I just give you bread. So the Malach HaMavet comes and he says, I'm the Malach HaMavet. So he says, I was sent from the Shamayim to come and to take your neshama because you're so holy, right? I can't really, but why don't you have mercy on me and give me your neshama? So think about it. The Malach HaMavet has azut metzach. He's got this audacity to come, and after already the Rabbi Chia comes and he gives him bread, he says, why don't you have mercy on me? Give me your neshama. What does he do? He gives him his neshama. He gives him his neshama. Now, we come and we say, what's going on over here? The Malach HaMavet is coming and asking for a donation. And then he comes, and Rabbi Chia comes, and he says, you know what, have mercy. How do we understand? How does this make sense? The entire story doesn't make sense. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz comes and he says an incredible concept. And he says like this. We're learning in Daf Yomi right now. We were just learning in Daf Yomi about the greatness of Rabbi Chia. Right? We were talking about how great Rabbi Chia was and about, Gdolim Ma'aseh Chia. Look how incredible were the actions of Chia. The Gemara actually says incredible stuff about Rabbi Chia. Right? About how his great actions came and contributed to Am Yisrael. And we're talking about incredible stuff that if it wasn't for Rabbi Chia, right, the Torah would have been actually forgotten in Israel. And it was incredible, right, what was written. He says over here, right, it says over here, says Rabbi Chia, he says, Kama Gdolim Ma'aseh Chia. Why? He says, Elmaleh, this is the Behar Amud Bet, and Masech B'Metzia. He says, even greater. He says, the greatest. Why? What was so great about him? Do you know what Rabbi Chia would do? Right? We're talking about, right? He comes and he says that, he says over here, he went and he made that the entire Torah was not going to be forgotten. He went and what he did was, right, that he planted flax. He took the flax and he made the nets. He took the nets and he caught the deer. He gave the flesh to the poor people. And then what he did was he made megillot. He made from the skins, he made the cloth for the megillah to write. He wrote on Chamisha Chumshe Torah, and he went and he taught 5 different boys 5 different chumashim. So one boy he taught chumash, Bereshit. Another one chumash Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar. Then he comes and then he went and he took 6 boys and he taught each one of them Shisha Sidra Mishnah. So one of them said it, another, and then he comes and he tells them, by the way, you guys are all expert in what you know. Teach each other. So the one that knew Bereshit taught the one of Shemot Bereshit. The one of Shemot taught the one of Bereshit Bereshit. Then the one of Bereshit taught the one of the Devarim. And the Devarim taught the one of Bereshit and Shemot. And they kept on teaching each other. Because since they were experts in what they knew, they were able to teach each other. And that's how he made that the Torah was not forgotten amongst Klal Yisrael. The Gemara then comes and he says, look how great is Rabbi Chia, right? And it continues going about how, they were coming, they were not coming late. He comes and he says, right, that they were going to come and bring, right, the Mashiach. And Rabbi Chia Banav, they came and they made a ta'anit, right? So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi went and he made a ta'anit, and they brought down Rabbi Chia and his children to do Chazarat Hashatz, and they were going to bring Mashiach, until finally what happened to happen was that they came and they started making like a fire between them, and it stopped them, right? And so imagine, greatness of Rabbi Chia, mamash, his power of the tefillah, they could have brought the Mashiach already. Rabbi Chia was an incredible person. So this is who we're talking about, right? That we just learned it now in Behar, right? In Behar Amud Bet, right? So now he comes and he says, right, as follows. He says, Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, there's another Gemara. The Gemara says, everything that Avraham Avinu did to Malachei Hasharet, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bichodo V'etzmo he did. And everything that Avraham Avinu did through Alidei Shaliach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did through a Shaliach. So therefore, Veruach Nasam, right? Vela Bakaratz Avraham, right? He did it V'etzmo, he did it himself. So Hashem came, and there was a Ruach that came and they brought the food, right? Which was the slav. Avraham, it says, V'yikach ema v'chalav. He himself took the bread, right? The butter and the milk. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a man. He was serving us. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to give us, to serve us. But Avraham was doing the Livia, escorting them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to escort us. But when he told them, you guys are going to take some water, it was going to be done through a shaliach, a messenger. So therefore, the water had to be brought through Moshe Rabbeinu, a messenger, which we already said something incredible. It means that if Avraham Avinu himself would have done it, we wouldn't have needed a messenger to bring us the water, which means that Moshe Rabbeinu would not have hit the rock. And if he would not have hit the rock, Moshe Rabbeinu would have come into Eretz Yisrael and we would have had the Mashiach already. So imagine what it is, the power of doing it you yourself, and not getting a messenger to come and to do it. So he says, Upliga de Recham and Rechanina. Does Recham and Rechanina tell me say, in the merit of the three, we merited three. Because of Chema v'chalav, we had the Zman. Because of the woman Alehem, we had the Anan. And because of Yukach Namat Mayim, we had the Be'er of Miriam. So it comes out that you have actions which are so small in your eyes. Think about it. Avraham Avinu for generations. Imagine, he gives them butter and milk to the Malachim. And all of a sudden we get 40 years in the desert. We have food. How does it make sense? Right? Bnei Yisrael, imagine we had that in there, kavod, clouds of glory. For what? Just because he went and he escorted them? Right? Or because of the little water, we had the bed of Miriam. Well, how do we understand this exactly? But rather, right, when we think, right, it's actually a completely different world. The zechut of Avraham Avinu, we think that he was just giving chema v'chalav, right? It's not really true. The chema v'chalav of Avraham Avinu, right, wasn't just stam. When Avraham Avinu gave the chema v'chalav, he gave the butter and the milk, right? That maaseh, when it was done through Avraham Avinu, it was on the highest level, because when Avraham Avinu gave it, he gave it with all of his neshama. He felt that he's putting into the chema his entire life. Everything, he's doing it with all his enthusiasm, his life. So therefore, obviously, it makes sense, right? Such an action. The same thing happened with Rabbi Chia. When the Malach HaMavet came and he knocked on his door, Rabbi Chia came and he gave him the bread. He felt he was not just giving him a piece of bread. He was giving him his entire neshama. He understood that his entire life is dependent upon this bread. He's giving it to him. So therefore, he says, now when Malach HaMavet comes and he says, 1 second, if you're such a Baal Chesed, right, and you're such a tzaddik, so you're giving your entire neshama, why don't you do chesed with me, an extra chesed? What is that? Give me your life. You're already giving me your life when you give me your bread. So now just give me your life. And Rabbi Chia actually answered him, even though it was a chutzpah of a question, and he gave him his life. Because for him, there's no difference between the bread that he's giving, or even though it's the last piece of bread that he would have in his life, or even be'emet, he would actually even die, or if so, why can't he give him his neshama then? So imagine what it is now, what we understand. If it wasn't for until Rabbi Akiva came and he taught us the halacha, the real perspective of a Jew is, you have only one bottle of water. It's not only even that you split it, you would give it 100% to your friend. And you would let yourself die. Until Rabbi Akiva came and he taught us, no, your life comes first. But if it wasn't for the drasha of Rabbi Akiva, that's the surah of the Torah, that's what you should have done. And that was the power behind every single action of Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu, when he gave the chema v'chelav, he was giving his entire neshama with the chema v'chelav. He was giving everything with it. You know, many times you come and you see a person, they do an action, and it looks like they're not even there. They're doing it but you come and you see somebody that is so involved. His entire neshama is involved. He's doing it with everything that he has. That, in essence, is what we're trying to learn from Avraham Avinu. And Rabbi Chia was the exact same way. And that's why for the Malach HaMavet, he's coming and telling him, what's the difference between a piece of bread and your neshama? You already gave me your neshama and the piece of bread. So just give me your neshama and that's it. Even without the piece of bread, just give me your neshama. That's it. And Rabbi Chia answered him. And he gave it to him. Because it's true. For Rabbi Chia, it was the exact same thing. There's no difference. How do we make that every single action of ours then becomes an action for eternity? Avraham Avinu was an action of eternity. It was something forever, for eternity. So how could it be then? How could it be? So the rabbis come and they actually say, it's a midrash and root. Amar B'Yisrael Bar Mirion, comes the Torah and tells us that if a person does a good action, do with all your heart. Because if Reuven would have known that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to write on him, Vayishmar Reuven listened and he tried to save them from his hands, he would have brought him back to his father on his shoulders. And if you, Aaron HaKohen, would have known that the Torah is saying, right, that he says, your brother is coming out to greet you. He's talking to Moshe Rabbeinu when he tells him, your brother Aaron is going to come out to greet you. And he's so happy in your success that you're becoming the next leader. He's going to be happy in his heart. He would have come out with Tupim Cholot. He would have come out with a band, right, with singings and songs. And if Boaz would have known, he would have given her the agalot, he would have given her the best. So he comes and he sees, you see from here, that when a person comes, right, especially now we know, when a person does a mitzvah, who writes it? Eliyahu Navi writes it, and Melech HaMashiach and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they sign it. And that's what it means. Adin biru Yashem Yishav Yikshev Hashem Yishma V'Yikatev Sever Zikaron Lefanav Le'yireh Hashem Choshesh Shmo. What does that mean exactly? So he comes and he says, to explain this midrash, Eliezer Simcha Vatson, he comes and he says like this. He says, really, we have to pay attention to the midrash. What does that mean? If he would have known that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was writing it, Chazal are teaching us that not all the nevuot which are written, only the nevuot which are actually necessary for generations. And whatever was not necessary, the Torah didn't write it. Right? Why? Because the Torah is for eternity. And therefore, it was only written on something which was needed for eternity. Anything which was not needed for eternity was not written down. And therefore, if the Torah, when the Torah wrote Vayishma Reuven Vayatzileu Mi'adam, it comes out that the actions were for eternity. And because if he wouldn't have saved Yosef, Am Yisrael would not have gone to Mitzrayim, and therefore everything that happened to Am Yisrael wouldn't have happened. So it comes out that the Reuven saving Yosef actually put Klal Yisrael where they are today, and therefore it's eternity. And the same thing is by Aharon. Moshe Rabbeinu was willing to become, right, the shliach to take out Bnei Israel, right, and he says to accept it. Hashem comes and he says, I want you to do it. And he said, no, but I want Aaron to do it. He comes and he says, no. He says, you know what it is? If I'm going to become the leader and not my brother, my older brother was leading Klal Yisrael for all the years. I was younger than him. I had to run away for, I don't know how many years. For some people say 60 years. He was away. And then he came back at the age of 80. So he ran away when he was a teenager, whatever it is. He comes back at the age of 80. And now all of a sudden he's going to take over from his brother. What's going on? HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, don't worry about it. You're going to be the true manhig. Why? He's happy. It was written for eternity. And the same thing for Boaz. The concept of the midrash is that when a person does a mitzvah, belev shalem, you never know what are going to be the outcomes of your actions. Reuven, Aaron, and Boaz, they didn't know. They were able to appreciate their actions. But we have to understand that who's the one that's writing it down? Eliyahu Navi and Melech HaMashiach and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are actually signing. Eliyahu Navi and Melech HaMashiach, it says, Hine anochi sholach echem et Eliyahu Navi, lifnei bo yom Hashem hagadol v'hanora, v'shiv levavot habanim. Rashi says, v'shiv levavot habanim la'Kadosh Baruch Hu. He's going to bring back everybody to Hashem. Al banim, through the children, meaning the children are going to bring the parents back to Hashem. Eliyahu was preparing Klal Yisrael to the Geulah of the Mashiach. And why is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to chotem on these zechuyot? Because the Torah is eternal. And in order for it to become eternal, it has to be written in Torah Netzach, has to be written. And therefore, even what the Nevi'im said, it was eternity. Because the Gemara says, it's called nitzchiyut. So now we understand exactly what happened. These zechuyot, Eliyahu Navi and Melech HaMashiach, they're going to write it. It's not chelek ma'Torah. And therefore, it's not eternity. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the sign. And therefore, he comes and he says, they become now eternity. Because once it's, so therefore, even if a person comes and he does a small mitzvah, the second that he does it with all his neshama, he does it with everything, it's going to be written down. Who's going to write it down? Eliyahu Navi Zachulatov is going to write it. And Melech HaMashiach and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are going to sign it, and then it becomes eternity. And therefore, we become shutafim, partners with the bringing of the Mashiach. When we come, every single action that we do, we have to realize that we do it everything with all our might. You're going to come and give to an, and don't just come, stop, give a, no, you speak to them. Bezrat Hashem, you're going to have a lot of atzlacha, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help you, and you should have and everything that you need, and the halvai could give you much more. This is what I could give you, and you give them. All of a sudden you come here, you do it with all your neshama. When you do it that way, what happens? It's going to be for eternity. And that eternity is what's going to bring the Melech HaMashiach. That's what's going to bring it. Because once it becomes eternity, everything changes. The Bichia's actions were for eternity. He changed the entire world. He saved the entire world, and we still have Torah until today. The same with Avraham Avinu. And the same were the actions of all of Motero and Kedusha. Everything, the heads of our nation, whether it's going to be Aaron Cohen, whether it's going to be Reuven, whether it's going, they did things, they changed eternity. Right now, many times we don't see it. But many times later on, we'll see the eternity that we change. When we come, we're going to have an effect on everybody, Be'ezrat Hashem.